Hare Krishna. So welcome all of you all for our Journey of Self-Discovery course. So today is the last session of this course, the sixth day. How 6 days have passed, so soon the 6 days have passed. Just appeared that we just started this course and 6 days have passed through. So today is the final session of this entire Journey of Self-Discovery course. And today is the most important session. So today's session is the essence of the Journey of Self-Discovery course. So just like this Journey of Self-Discovery course is itself the essence of the Gita. So Gita is like vast literature, 700 verses, 18 chapters. But we are trying to give you a gist of the Gita in 6 days. And out of this essence of the Gita, which is the Journey of Self-Discovery course, this session, today's session, the practical application of Gita in daily life is actually the essence. So even if you have not understood many part of the course, or you have missed many part of the course due to range disturbance or whatever, if you all pay attention for today's session, you all would have understood the essence of this Journey of Self-Discovery course. So please be attentive in today's session. So today we are going to discuss the practical application of Gita in our daily life. Because the wisdom of Gita is just not a philosophy to be understood with your head. It is something to be applied in our day-to-day life. Like Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya of ISKCON would say, Prabhupada would say that Gita philosophy is not armchair philosophy. It is just not meant to keep discussing. It is meant to discuss and apply in our day-to-day life. So today we're going to see the practical application of Gita in our life. How does this Journey of Self-Discovery course and the wisdom of Gita translate into our daily life? Okay, so just a quick summary of what we have been doing till now in this 5 days. So first we saw, who am I? I am not the body, but I am a spirit soul entrapped in the temporary material body. So I am not the body, but a spirit soul entrapped in the temporary material body. Where do I come from? I, the spirit soul, who was originally with God, has come from the spiritual world, a place where there is no birth, no death, no old age, no disease, our true home. So as spirit soul, we all belong to the spiritual kingdom. That is our original home. But we have left our original home and come to a foreign place. So the spiritual world is a place where there is no birth, no death, no old age, no disease. Everything is eternal there. So just like you can see in this picture, this is what happens in the spiritual world. Krishna is enjoying with his devotees, with all of us in the spiritual world, but we choose to leave Krishna and come to this material world. So where am I now? I am now in this material world called Dukkha Alayam and Ashashvatam, a place full of miseries and temporariness. So first point is, Krishna didn't send us here. We chose to come here. In the Bible, there is a very interesting story called the story of the prodigal son. Jesus tells this story to his disciple, a very interesting story. So one time there was a landlord who had 2 sons, very rich landlord. He had 2 sons. One of the son was an obedient son, but the other son wanted to be independent from his father. So he told his father one day, give me my share of money. I want to go alone and I want to check out this world on my own. The father told him that, no, don't go out. No, the world is a very cruel place. You will go through a lot of suffering. The son said, no, nothing doing. Give me my share. I'm going. So father, even though he didn't want the son to go, the son was adamant. So the father sent him, give him a share of money. So because he had a lot of money, the son had, this boy got a lot of friends and they spent all the money. And very soon he became a pauper. He came on the streets, literally, from riches to rags. And that is when he started to realize the instruction of his father. He started to realize that how this world is a miserable place. And slowly it dawned upon him thinking that yes, now I need to go back to my father. That is where I can actually be happy. So he takes the journey back, where back home to his original father, to find happiness. So we are all like this prodigal son. We have all left our original father God, and we have left our original home, the spiritual world, and we have come to this material world to check out. But what do we get in this world? Even though we have come in this world to experience happiness, but we get little happiness, little pleasures, but there is lot of pains in this world. COVID-19 has been a big wake-up call for everyone practically around the world, because there is so much suffering going around in this world now, and everyone is slowly realizing it. There are so many things that are beyond our control. So this is where we have come to, a material world which is full of miseries and temporary. Why am I here now? I chose to be independent of God, and thus He created this place which is like a prison house for my rectification. So first, we didn't come here, God didn't send us here. We chose to be independent of God, and thus we came here. And God has made this place with certain rules. And the idea is that people be rectified of this mentality and then go back to Him. Okay, why do I get different bodies? Desires create actions. My actions give me reactions. Different kinds of reactions give rise to 84 lakh different bodies. So the whole journey to the material world from the spiritual world begins with desires. The first sin, like the Bible explains this, the original sin. What is the original sin? We wanted to be independent of God. We wanted to enjoy separate of God. That desire creates more actions. With every action, there is a reaction, and we keep getting these bodies, 84 lakh species, from one body to another. For how long this will go on? Billions of life we have lived, millions of good and bad things we have done, millions of reactions are in store for us. So we have been in this world for quite some time. Through so many lifetimes we really have no calculation how many lives we have been around, how many good, how many bad we have done, and how much reaction is in store for us. Just like now, many times when you have this rope, rajju, this coil that gets coiled completely, it becomes very difficult to uncoil it. So similarly, there are so many actions, reactions have happened. It's become a mess inside our life. So now the question is, what should I do now? We have come in this material world. We have realized, yes, this is a place of suffering, and we have done a lot of good, bad, all the reactions are in store. So what do I do now? We have the most precious gift, that is the human body. The good news is that we have this human body. Durlabho manusho deho dehinam shanubhangura. So the scriptures explain that this human body is very, very rare. It is the most precious gift. After wandering in 84 lakh species, one finally lands into the human body. So human life is like a train junction. Just like we discussed yesterday, in a train junction, if you have sat in a train which is going, say, from Goa to Mumbai, and in between you decide that no, I don't want to go to Mumbai, I want to go to Bangalore. So what do you have to do? You have to wait for a junction to come, because in the junction you can get down from the present train and then board a train that goes to Bangalore. Similarly, we may be already on a journey to where our karma is leading us. But at this point, after doing the journey of self-discovery course, at least till now, theoretically we understand that human life is the strange junction. Now we can decide whether the journey we have been going around, the direction in which we have been going, is it right? If not, do we want to shift and take a different train? The train that takes us back to the spiritual world. So in this human junction, in the strange junction of this human body, there are different trains available. We can take birth again as a human being. We can go to the heavenly planet as a demigod. We can be born in the lower species as an animal in any of the 84 lakh species, or we can choose to go back home, back to Godhead, back to the spiritual world where there is no more birth, no more death. That is the choice that we have in this human form of life. So now the question is, how can I go back home, back to Godhead? What is the process in which I take this train, I make this shift and go back to the spiritual world? Freedom from all previous reaction and the process of acting in such a way that there will be no further reaction is called akarma. So the way, the technique, the technology through which we can go back to the spiritual world is called akarma. What is akarma? Akarma means two things. First, by doing akarma, what is akarma? We will be discussing in today's class. By doing akarma, all our previous reactions, good, bad, everything is squared off. The account becomes zero. Because until your account of karmic account is zero, you can't go back to the spiritual world. So by doing akarma, our karma account becomes zero. And we don't get any further reactions. No further reactions that will come. That is the beauty of akarma. So if you want to go back to the spiritual world, we need to follow akarma in our life. What is akarma? Akarma means neutral activities. Activities that don't give you good or bad karma. Because we saw that both good and bad karma in this world is equally bad in one sense. In the sense that good karma is definitely good, but then it's bad in the sense that it keeps us stuck in this world. Just like if you do bad karma, you are born in a poor family. If you do good karma, you are born as a king. But ultimately, king or a pauper, both have to suffer, isn't it? In today's COVID crisis, whether someone is a Hollywood, Bollywood star or someone is like a millionaire, trillionaire, everyone has to go through the crisis. No one is freed from it. So whether you get good karma or bad karma, either way there is suffering. So the best intelligent option is to choose akarma or neutral activities. So what is akarma? Just like there is a soldier who goes to fight, and suppose there's an Indian soldier, for example's sake, there's an Indian soldier and he goes to the border and there are some terrorists who are infiltrating the borders and coming into India. So this Indian soldier takes this AK-47 and shoots down few terrorists very boldly, very courageously. So what he is given by the President of India, he is given Paramveer Chakra. He is given awards for showing his courage and power, and his loyalty to the nation. He is awarded. Why? So even though he has killed, he is being given award because he is fought on behalf of the government. So the same soldier comes back home with this AK-47 and he sees that a neighboring child is making too much noise. So he takes the AK-47 and shoots down the child. What will the government do? The government will hang the soldier. So the soldier may say, I just shot few people in the border, you all gave me medal. Now I shot one boy, you all are punishing me, you all are hanging me. Why? What is the difference? Anyone would like to say? Why is this soldier awarded in the first place and why is he punished now again? Anyone would like to unmute and explain?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yeah.
There he was doing his duty, but here he's doing a crime. I mean, by killing a child.
Exactly. Yeah. So there he was doing his duty. He was doing on behalf of the government. That is why even though he killed, he didn't get any reaction for it. He was personally was not held responsible. But because now in the second place, he is doing it for his own selfish desire, he is punished. So you see, activity is the same. In both the places, he killed. Both the places he killed. But in one place, he killed on behalf of the government, not with his selfish desire. And in the second place, he killed for his own private reason, for his own selfish desires. So that is why it is called akarma in this example. That means the soldier is not responsible for his killing when he does it on behalf of the government, because the government absorbs all that. Similarly, what is akarma? Exactly like this. Acting for the interest of God by following his authority and not for personal satisfaction is called akarma or yoga. So what is akarma? Acting for the interest of God. Just like the soldier is acting for the interest of the government. So similarly, akarma means acting for the interest of God. How? How do you know what is the interest of God? By following his authority. And where is the authority? Mentioned in the scriptures. The Gita Bhagavad tells us very clearly that is the manual for us. What does Bhagavad Gita mean? Bhagavad Gita means the song of God. God has sung this song for all of us so that we know how to live life. So the Gita starts off with Arjuna wanting to do what he wanted. But the Gita ends with Arjuna coming to the conclusion, Karishye vachanam tava. Krishna, I will carry out your will. Not my will, but your will. So that is akarma. Doing something for the interest of God by following his authority and not for personal satisfaction. So there is no personal agenda. Ahetuki apratiyata yayatma suprasidati. So without any conditions, without interruption, you try to work for satisfaction of Krishna. Samsiddhir haritoshanam. Trying to satisfy God in every endeavor of ours. This is called akarma or yoga. So both these terms are the same. Akarma and yoga mean the same thing. What is yoga? Yoga means to connect. Generally, when we think of the word yoga, what comes in our mind? Some people doing asanas. On top picture, you can see Yogacharya, Iyengarji doing asan. And the same asan down, there's a drunkard who's trying to, probably he doesn't even know that he's doing that asan, but in his drunken state, he's doing something. So generally when we hear the word yoga, this is what comes in our mind. Asan, or pranayam, breathing. That is what comes in our mind. So this is definitely a part of yoga, but it is not the complete whole of yoga or the goal of yoga. The goal of yoga is not to perfect asan and pranayam. The goal of yoga is what? Samadhi. Yam, niyam, asan, pranayam, pratyahar, and finally samadhi. The goal of yoga is samadhi. And what does samadhi mean? Samadhi means establishing that connection back with God. So before we know what is yoga, we also should know what is not yoga. So just like you go and buy a product, before buying a product, you have to know something about the product. Na? If you have to buy a washing machine, you have to have some idea what a washing machine is. If you want to buy diamond, you have to have some idea what a diamond is. Otherwise, what will happen? There'll be a lot of people who will sell fake diamonds and fool you because you have no idea what a diamond is. Similarly, to know what is yoga, we also need to know what is not yoga. So yoga means to join, to connect. Now we are all disconnected from God. The process of yoga is to establish that connection back with God. So to join, just like you can see here, the child is holding the hand of the father. We started the journey of self-discovery course with that example, and we are ending back with that same example. We are all like the children who have left the hand of a divine father, and we are all loitering in this world alone, suffering. So the process of yoga, Krishna comes and speaks the Gita for all of us to teach us yoga. Come, join your hands back with me. Let us work together and cooperate with me. That is Krishna's desire. And when we hold on God's hand, when we establish that connection back with God, what can be missing in our life? So why to connect? Someone might say, why do I need to practice yoga? I don't care. I don't need for that connection. No. Without that connection, our life will be meaningless. Just like if a finger, if it is cut from our body and the finger falls apart, what is the use of that finger? The finger has no use. It will be thrown off. As long as the finger is connected to the body, the finger has value. As soon as the finger is disconnected, there is no value to the finger. Or just like hair on our head. We don't have hair, but for people who have hair, hair is something that's a source of great beauty, You spend a lot of time in combing the hair and going to saloons and spas, spending a lot of money. So hair, as long as it is there on the body, is very valuable. You feel it's your wealth, you're so proud of it, and you make it attractive, everything. But if that hair falls out of your head, and while you're eating rice dal, you find that hair in that rice dal, how will you feel? You'll feel disgusted. But then it is your same hair. Some time ago, you are like so excited looking in the mirror. Now why it's getting disgusting for you? Because when the hair is connected to you, it has meaning. As soon as it comes out, it goes in the dustbin. Similarly, our life has meaning as long as we have the connection with God. Just like a fish. If the fish is in water, the fish has great meaning, great excitement. The fish is very happy. So what is the, while we are searching for happiness in this world, we started our course with the search for happiness topic. So what is the key to be happy? If the fish has to be happy, what it needs? The fish needs water. Simple. It doesn't need anything else. You give the fish gold, clothes, iPhone, i10, you'd give anything to the fish is not going to be happy. The fish will be happy if you put it back in water. Finish. That's all the fish wants. We are all like this fish. And the water for us is connection with God. Once we are disconnected from that water and we are in the land of this material world, just imagine you put a fish in the desert, the hot sand. The fish will suffer badly. So this material world is like that hot sand where we are suffering. And the spiritual world and Krishna consciousness is like that cool water. So when we go and connect back to God, we will be perfectly happy. So that is why all the Vedic scriptures recommend us, please, to be happy, try to establish your connection back with God. So yoga is not for a shapely body, not for good health. These could be the side benefits of yoga, definitely. You might get a better body, you might get good health, you may increase your lifespan, or you may get some mystic powers. These could be the side benefits of yoga, but this is not the main benefit of yoga. What is the main benefit of yoga? To establish our connection back with God. One time, there was a mystic yogi who came from the Himalayas, 25, 30 years of austerity. He left his village, and acquired siddhis. And he acquired a power where he could walk on water. So he called all the villagers and everyone came to see this sight of this yogi walking on water. And in front of everyone, he just casually walked across the river. So there was one boy, a young child in fact, he told this yogi, what you have done, what you have achieved is just worth 1 rupee. So the yogi got so angry. I have learned the power to walk on water and you say it's worth 1 rupee. The boy said, I'll prove it. So the boy called the boatman, paid him 1 rupee and told him, take me across the river. And the boatman took him. So the boy said, what you have done, I have done it very easily by paying the boatman 1 rupee. You have spent 30 years of your life in learning only the power to walk across water. You could have achieved something much greater. So we should not get fooled by the external forms of yoga, but we should go to the essence, that is to connect back with God. So what are the 4 types of yoga? Arjun Kriya Prabhu will explain.
Hare Krishna. So we saw that how yoga means to connect to God, the Supreme. So there are 4 types of yogas which are mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures also. So the yoga is that, so they are Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. So Karma Yoga is the, you can say, is the first step, which is like connecting our senses to Lord, or connecting to the Lord through our work, through our body. And then because what happens, usually all of us want to enjoy our senses. And most of us cannot follow the strict rules without controlling our senses. So with Karma Yoga, when we engage our senses in God's service, then we naturally develop sense control. And then we become qualified to do Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga is connecting our mind to the Lord, or it is like actually getting knowledge of God. So when we get knowledge of God, then naturally we connect Him through our mind. And then Dhyana Yoga is connecting with our intelligence. Like whatever through Jnana Yoga, Krishna says in the Gita, Bhonam Janmanamante Jnanvan Mam Prapadyate. Jnana Yoga is basically study of scriptures in depth and understanding who is the cause of this world, whom to surrender to, how has this world been created. So all these questions will be answered. So with that, a person is convinced that now I have to surrender to that Supreme. So then a person becomes very much inspired to do Dhyana Yoga. With Dhyan, a person may, Dhyana also is called in other names as Ashtanga Yoga, Yam, Niyam, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dhyan, Dharana, Samadhi. So basically then he attains Samadhi, where he completely meditates on the Supreme Lord. And then the last is Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is to connect to the Lord by surrendering everything to Him. So if we see all these yogas which are there, which are given, the purpose ultimately is to connect to God. Whatever the instrument may be, but ultimately surrendering to God. So if we see one by one, next slide please. Yeah. So just to a small distinct point to note, Karma Yoga is doing work for the Lord, and the next two yogas which are there, like Jnana and Dhyana. Jnana Yoga and Dhyana Yoga are very, very strict in one sense, because for doing Jnana Yoga, one person has to have knowledge of Sanskrit. He has to have renunciation, means he cannot do Jnana Yoga by being at home, because he has to completely engross himself in reading scriptures and studying scriptures. And Dhyana Yoga is, you cannot even stay in the cities. He has to go to the Himalayas or the forests, and there he has to choose a very peaceful, quiet place, stay there, and then controlling his breath. After controlling his breath, what happens is his life gets prolonged, and with that prolonged life, he has to then internalize his senses, and with those internalizing senses, he completely gives up eating, drinking water, and he is completely aloof from this material world. And then he has to search out the Paramatma within his heart. He has to meditate on the form of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, who is in the heart. And then when he is able to completely concentrate, it is Dhyana Yoga. And Bhakti Yoga is, we'll explain it in more detail. Now basically here, we should understand that in this current situation in Kali Yuga, how many of you all think you all are ready to do one of this yoga, Jnana Yoga and Dhyana Yoga? Like when we said for Jnana Yoga, we have to give up our family. For Dhyana Yoga also, we have to go to the forest. How many of you all can study all the scriptures, knowing Sanskrit, the grammar, the interpretation? So basically, none of us are qualified for that. Because in Kali Yuga, our life is short. Our senses are, the environment itself is completely full of passion. And even there are no proper forests and guides and gurus to help us do this. And we have a very short life, and our body also is not fit enough to do all kinds of austerities. So it is said that in Kali Yuga, Bhakti Yoga is the most practical, and especially in all of any other yoga also. So why it is most practical? Because it is very simple to do for performance. Next slide. Yeah. So in terms of practicality, Bhakti Yoga can be done in being in whatever situation. Like in Lord Brahma, he prays to Krishna, he says, sthane sthita shrutigatam tanuvag manobhir. He's saying how to do bhakti sthane sthita. Whatever situation we are in, that is, if you are working, if you are a housewife, if someone is a student, or someone is a retired person, someone is a child, anyone can do bhakti yoga. Because after we explain, you will see that anyone is qualified to do this. So any human being in this world, he may be born in India or not, he may be born in the Sanatan Dharma or not, or he may be having previous background of spirituality or not. So anyone can do it. So it is very, very practical. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah. And whose opinion it is? Has recommended Bhakti Yoga? Just to see. Now there are so many versions of the Windows operating systems. It is from XP, Windows 2000, Professional, and all these various things are there. Now, who in this world can tell or recommend which is the best of all these Windows? Basically, the one who has manufactured it. He is the one who can tell which is the best. Because he will know all the loopholes, he will know advantages, disadvantages, if there are any faults, we can tell. Similarly, for Bhakti Yoga also, Krishna himself recommends Bhakti Yoga. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan nityasmin tattvataha. Krishna says, Bhaktya mam abhijanati. Only through the process of bhakti, a person can know me as I am, tattvataha. In the 6th chapter of Gita, Krishna says that yoginam api sarvesham mad gaten antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam samay yukta tamo matah. If you ask my opinion, one who is completely surrendered to me, always thinks about me, he is the best of all yogis. This comes in Bhagavad Gita 6.47. So Krishna is saying that. So Krishna recommends Bhakti Yoga. After explaining Karma Yoga in the 3rd chapter, 5th chapter, in the 5th chapter again he explains Nishkam Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, and 6th chapter he explains the Dhyana Yoga. After explaining all these yogas, at the end of the 6th chapter is saying Bhakti, or Bhakti is the highest, or the best yogi is a person who does Bhakti. And then on he continues from 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th till 12th, all Bhakti Yoga chapters. And in the 12th chapter is completely dedicated to Bhakti Yoga. So Bhakti Yoga is the recommendation of Krishna himself, who is the object of all yoga. Next slide. So some people have opinion, yato mat tato pat. As many, all paths will lead to the same goal. Whatever you do, you will reach the same destination. So this is not true. Neither Krishna supports it in Gita, neither any of the Vedic statements tell that. This is just a concoction of certain people just to make everything accommodative. It's like Krishna says, Yanti devrata devan pitrin yanti pitrivrata. Bhutan yanti bhuteja mag yajino mapi mam. Krishna says, those who worship any of the devatas, they will go to that person. If someone worships their ancestors, he will go to Pitraloka. If someone worships ghosts and spirits, he will go to their planets. And similarly, if someone worships me, he will come to me. Just like if we sit in a train which is going to Delhi, then we cannot expect it to reach Calcutta. The Delhi train will reach Delhi. Similarly, the particular yoga which we are choosing, that will give that the destination. Similarly, it's not that we worship any god and we reach Krishna. Although it is said that all worship reaches Krishna, but it is not true that our destination will be towards Krishna. Next slide. So it is said that yoga system is like climbing the steps. in the steps when we climb, there's a lower step, then the higher and higher and the highest. Similarly, yogic process is, as we do karma yoga, we qualify to do jnana yoga. The perfection of karma yoga is to qualify to do jnana yoga. Like if you see, in karma yoga, the perfection is sannyas or renunciation. And after renunciation, a person gets qualified to perform jnana yoga. And jnana yoga, the perfection is control of the senses. And then he gets qualified to do dhyana yoga or meditation. And perfection of meditation is to realize the Paramatma in the heart. Then he is qualified to surrender to the Paramatma. And the ultimate process of bhakti is sarvadharman parityajya, surrendering to God. So Krishna says, you need not go through all these various steps. You can directly surrender unto me. That is when the shloka which explained, sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshishami ma sucha. So Krishna ends Bhagavad Gita by this shloka and he says, you directly surrender unto me, I will clear you of all sins, do not fear. So Krishna is telling, stop fearing of not being successful in any other yoga. Directly do bhakti yoga and surrender unto me. So all other yogas are step, and other bhakti yoga is the highest step of all yoga and also destination of all yoga. Next step. So bhakti yoga is like the elevator. We can go to the next step. We can go to a building by climbing so many steps, and the other way of going to the higher floor is through the elevator. So when elevator is there, we need not go through all these steps. So bhakti yoga is like an elevator. Like in bhakti yoga, a person surrenders his senses, words, and mind to Krishna directly. Next slide. So in Bhagavad Gita is like a sandwich. If you see, there are so many sandwiches which we are familiar of. There is a jam sandwich, the vegetable sandwich, cheese sandwich, and so many others also. So how does the sandwich get its name? By the stuffing which is in the sandwich. The top portion will be bread and the down portion also will be bread. But the between part gives the taste and the name to the sandwich. So similarly, if we see, Krishna also has made Bhagavad Gita like a sandwich. In one sense, how it is? The first 6 chapters are Jnana and they are Karma Yoga. Last 6 chapters are Jnana Yoga. In between this, Bhakti Yoga. So the most important chapters are in between in the Bhagavad Gita. Next slide. And Bhakti Yoga is very easy to practice. It is said that Bhakti Yoga is like a natural for the spirit soul. It is said like the natural propensity of a soul is to do bhakti. So it is very easy to practice. A person need not go through all the tedious processes of austerity. He need not leave his family and go to the forest. He need not renounce the material world. What he has to do is, Bhakti Yoga means he has to use whatever he has in the service of Krishna. Like in other yogas, a person has to give up so many things. He has to give up his job. He may have to give up his career. He has to give up the attraction to this material world. But in Bhakti Yoga, it is very simple. What he has to do, he did not give up anything, but he has to join everything to Krishna. He has to join his job to Krishna. He has to become Krishna. He has to Krishnaize his job. He has to join his senses to Krishna. He has to speak about Krishna. He has to hear about Krishna. So in this way, Bhakti Yoga is very, very easy to practice. Next slide. So what is the difference between ordinary karma and bhakti karma? Like in one of the example we already told that how bhakti karma is like akarma only, and ordinary karma is ordinary karma which has reactions, which has sin and which has pious credits also. So in bhakti yoga is like bhakti yoga the karma is a karma which has no sin and which will not give us rebirth. Like there was a story where a very rich man, he had a very huge wall, very beautiful wall, and he usually people would come and stick so many posters of different movies and this and that, and he would always get irritated. And he came and he announced, if next time I catch someone sticking any bills to my uh, wall, I will punish him. So there were 4 children who were there. So they put a bet. If any one of you all stick a bill here, then we will give you 100 rupees. So one of them was very intelligent. He said, I can do it. Everyone thought we'll see the fun of him getting beaten up. So he brought some paint and he started painting the wall. And everyone was now waiting that when this person will come and punish this person. So the owner came out and he saw that he's painting something. So he came very angrily and approached him. But as soon as he came and he saw the painting, he was very happy with him. He smiled and he said, oh, I'm very happy. And he also removed 100 rupee and gave it to this person. And others were shocked. Other than being punished, he is getting rewarded. So they also, he got 100 rupees from the owner, he got 100 rupees from the his friends also. So in return, stick no bills. Means this is a very beautiful example. And whatever we work, like Krishna says, yad karosi, yad asnasi, yad josi, dadasi yat. Whatever you do as work, whatever you do in charity, whatever you do in terms of austerity, and whatever you eat, everything you give as offering to me. So Bhakti Yoga is so simple. This, if we do for Krishna, like Arjuna was fighting, initially he was fighting for himself. And Krishna, after hearing Gita, Arjuna says, Karishye vachanam tava. I understood everything. Now I will do whatever you say. So it is similar to this. So Bhakti Yoga is that kind of karma where we do our work for Krishna. Next. So how can we acquire love for Krishna? We did not acquire anything. It is not an artificial commodity to be acquired. It is said that Krishna's bhakti is present in our heart. We need not get it from outside. Just like the example of the very great sculptor, I think his name was Michelangelo. Yeah. So he was very expert in doing all these very beautiful sculptures. So one of them asked, how do you do such beautiful things? He said, I don't do much. I only remove the unwanted stone, and what remains is a beautiful art. Similarly, we have to remove the unwanted desires. We have to remove the unwanted anarthas, they are called in the Sanskrit language. Anartha means unwanted things in our heart. And then what happens, what remains is pure Krishna consciousness or pure bhakti to Krishna. Next slide. So what has to be removed is lust, anger, pride, greed, envy and illusion. Kama, Krodha, Mada, Moha, Matsarya. This have to be removed. And when we remove that, the natural attraction will remain in our heart. Just like there is a natural attraction between magnet and the iron. So as soon as the iron gets rusted, then it loses its quality of being attracted to the magnet. But when we remove the rust, the natural attraction is re-established. Next slide. You want to continue?
Yeah, okay. So, certain misconceptions about Bhakti Yoga that everyone has. First, will I have to quit my family and become a monk to practice bhakti yoga? No, not necessary. Because Gita was spoken to Arjuna, who was not a monk. Arjuna was a married person with wives, with children, and he had great responsibility. A very responsible person. He was the king of the entire world. So Krishna chose Gita to speak to Arjuna because Krishna knew that in future, especially in Kali Yuga, people will have this question: "Arey, I am not a full-time monk. How can I practice bhakti yoga in my daily life?" So Krishna chose Arjuna and not any other sannyasi. Krishna didn't choose Narad or anyone else because Krishna wanted to make a point that Arjuna is a practical man, grihastha, still he could practice bhakti yoga. So bhakti yoga is for, as Arjun Priya Prabhu explained, the other yogas, the compulsion is that one has to practice renunciation. But for bhakti yoga, it is not that. Staying in our life, wherever we are, sthane sthita shutivan tanuva manobhi. So wherever we are, whatever life we are, we can practice bhakti yoga because bhakti yoga is very, very practical. So the second misconception that people have, it takes too much time and I have no time. This is a complaint that practically everyone has. You tell people to come for satsang program or to chant Hare Krishna. Their problem is, I have no time. But this is a misconception. Everyone has plenty of time. What is the proof? The proof is that we spend so much of our time in WhatsApp, in Facebook, in all this social media, but then we don't have time to practice bhakti yoga. So it is not that we don't have time, it is that bhakti yoga is not our priority. Because when we make something our priority, we find time for it, isn't it? However busy we are, we find time to check our WhatsApp. However busy we are, we find time to eat 3 times, we find time to sleep. Does anyone tell, I'm so busy, I have no time to eat? No, you find time. Why? Because you know it is important. If you don't eat, if you don't sleep, you will not be able to pull long. So similarly, bhakti yoga is also very, very important. When we understand something is important, we will find time for it. We will overcome all our excuses. So it is not that it takes too much time and I have no time. Bhakti yoga is very practical in our day-to-day life. That is why Krishna chose to speak to Arjuna, and that too where the setting is the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And the conch shells were blown on both sides. That means the war was about to start. The biggest war in history, World War Zero, the biggest war in history, and Arjuna was the most important man. Still, Arjuna, even in Kurukshetra, he took time to hear Gita. Why? Because Arjuna knew it is very important for me to win this war. Similarly, we all have a little wars in life. We all have different Kurukshetras in life. We all have our own struggles. Therefore, hearing Gita, spending time in satsang is not a waste of time. Rather, it is the solution to all problems. So we think that let us solve all the problems, then I will take up to bhakti. But we forget that bhakti is the solution to all problems. There is no other solution. So when we understand this, we will make time for it. So the third misconception that people have is spirituality is a retirement program. No, spirituality is not a retirement program. So when young people take up the process, people say, "Arey, you are still very young. Why are you taking up Krishna consciousness, bhakti, spirituality? Do it when you are old." That is not the idea. Spirituality is something to be done very young. Why? Because it takes time to practice. When you're already old and you have a lot of physical ailments and so many things to deal with, it's very difficult to take up spiritual life. Just like they say, if you have to bend a bamboo, the bamboo has to be green. If you try to bend an old bamboo, it will crack. Similarly, yes, anyone at any age can take up spiritual life, but if we can start early, it is better. Prahlad Maharaj in the Bhagavatam says that Komaram Acharya Pragyo, that one should start Bhakti Yoga when one is 5 years old. So if someone is 5 years old or above, we are already late to start Bhakti Yoga. So it's not a retirement program. And by the way, what is the definition of old age? What is the definition of old age? Anyone would like to volunteer? How do you define old age?
When person is unable to do the physical activity.
When a person is unable to do physical activity. Okay. Any other definition of old age?
When our body gets deteriorate, very old, but the soul is still eternal.
When the body gets old. Someone is saying after retired from job, we are old. Any other definition of old age?
Whenever Hare Krishna Prabhuji, whenever we think that we are old, that day we become old.
Wow, amazing answer. Whenever we think we are old, we become old. Okay, that's also correct. Any other perspective?
Senses become old.
Senses become old. Okay. Okay, I'll give you one understanding of old age. See if it makes sense. Old age means one who's close to death is called old person. Correct? When you're old means death, your last moment is very close to you. My question to all of y'all is, do any of us know when death is going to come? How far we are from death? Does any of us know about it?
No.
Yes, yes, no?
No.
No one knows about it.
Nobody.
Nobody knows. That means we are already old enough. We are already old enough. We don't know when that last strike will come. COVID-19 is already there around. We don't know what's going to happen. Even if COVID-19 goes away, we don't know what else is around the corner. So we have no idea when death is going to come. That means we are already old. We need to take up spiritual life urgently. So the next misconception people have is spiritual life is a sort of emotion and a sentiment. So you tell people take up bhakti, they will tell you बहुत भक्ति है हृदय में, अंदर से ना बहुत भक्ति है, मैं बाहर दिखाता नहीं हूँ पर अंदर से बहुत भक्ति है. भक्ति है. How do you come to know भक्ति है? कोई भी बोल सकता है भक्ति है, भक्ति है. Anyone can say it, but then just saying it doesn't make it. Right? Just like there's an English saying, to love means to serve. So if you say I love you, if someone you propose to someone or you tell them that you love them, that means you have to serve them. Just saying I love you will not work. You have to make some sacrifice and do some service. Similarly, anyone can say I love God, I love Krishna. You know, people wear those t-shirts, I love Krishna, you know, and all that. Saying that is great, but living a life of love, living a life of service to Krishna, that is where the challenge is. Like if someone says, you tell someone I love you, and that person tells you, I'm feeling very thirsty, get me some water. You tell him I love you. That fellow tells you, Arey, you love me, then get me some water. Na? Says, no, I love you. I don't have to show it, I just love you. Doesn't make sense. If you love someone and your object of love is saying is thirsty, you get up and get some water for him. Do something practical. So Prabhupada translated bhakti as devotional service. Bhakti means there has to be service to God. Otherwise, it just remains an emotion. So bhakti is not emotional and sentimental. There are emotions involved, but there is service involved also. Just like Arjuna, he didn't tell Krishna, Krishna, you fight the war and I will just keep doing your bhakti. I will not do anything. No, he had to do practical work also. He had to fight practically. His bhakti was to fight in the war. So similarly, bhakti means to do something practical for the will of Krishna. Okay, now we are coming to the most important part in this entire session. So the next half an hour is going to be very, very important. So this is like almost the conclusion of the Journey of Self-Discovery course. We are going to discuss 4 or 5 points here. This is very important. How do I practice Bhakti Yoga in family life, in our day-to-day life. We are going to see 5 things. This is like the conclusion of the Journey of Self-Discovery course, the conclusion of the practical application of Gita. If you'll understand these 5 things, you'll have understood everything. 5 things, what are they? Just like if a person is diseased, what should a person do? 5 steps. First, accept that one is sick. Step 2, approach the right hospital. Step 3, go to the right doctor. Step 4, the doctor will tell you certain things to avoid. And step 5, the doctor will give you the right treatment. If you do these 5 things, you'll be cured from your disease. Similarly, all of us are spiritually diseased now. We are all spiritually diseased and we are suffering in this world. So to get cured from our spiritual disease and get back our original healthy nature of serving God, we need to do 5 things. And these are the 5 things we need to do in our day-to-day life to do Bhakti Yoga to Krishna. First step, accept that one is sick. This is something that is very important. Until you accept that, yes, I am suffering in this world, we will not take up treatment, isn't it? If you have the best of doctor in front of you, but you're not ready to accept that you're sick, how will the doctor help you? The doctor can't help you. Until you're hungry, how will you appreciate food? So first is we need to accept courageously and honestly that, yes, I am suffering in this world. Yes, this world is a place of misery and I need to do something about it. We need to take an honest inventory of our own hearts and lives. Are we really happy? We may say, when people ask us, how are you? We may say, I'm fine. The question we need to ask ourselves, am I really fine? If not, what should I do so that I can actually become fine? One time in a village, there was a circus that came to this village. But this was a very interesting circus. So in this circus, it was advertised that only one person is allowed at a time. Generally in a circus, thousands of people can go. But this circus said it's a special circus. Only one person is allowed at a time. So this circus was advertised as the 25 paisa circus. So there was a huge line in the ticket counter to go and see. And only one person was allowed each time. So the first guy went inside. And what did he see? He saw a huge tent. And in between there was a ring. And there was a wrestler standing there. And he called this guy inside, come inside. And this fellow went inside. And the wrestler beat him, black and blue, severely beat him, left and right. And he told him, you think you can watch circus in 25 paisa? And again started to beat him. So this fellow was like frustrated. You know, I came to see a circus and I have only become a circus. I have only become a clown. I was beaten thoroughly. So he didn't know what to do. So probably he thought, I did some mistake, this fellow beat me. But what will I tell people outside? The entire village is waiting. So he put his shirt proper, combed his hair, and he came out. And people are asking him, how was the circus? He told him, first class circus. All of y'all should definitely watch this circus. The second guy goes in. The second guy is all the more confused. And the second guy also gets beaten. But the second guy is thinking, the first guy, he said the circus is very good. And now for me, this fellow beat me. So how can the circus be bad for me? So he said, probably that fellow got a good circus. You know, I made some mistakes, so I am suffering. So he combed his hair and came out and told everyone, first class circus, all of y'all should watch and go. Don't go without watching. However long it takes in the line, wait, watch the circus, only go. Lifetime opportunity. So in this way, everyone came inside, everyone got beaten thoroughly. But everyone is telling each other, how are you? First class. How was the circus? First class. No one is ready to admit that I was beaten, Baba, thoroughly inside. No one is ready to admit. Similarly, in this world is like that circus. And Maya Devi is like that wrestler. Everyone is beaten. Everyone has their own quota of suffering. But no one is ready to admit. Everyone says first class. But within their heart, they know, I am not first class. There is a lot of suffering going on. So the first way to get cured from this disease of materials, the spiritual sickness that we have, is to accept that we are sick. So just like, every disease has a symptom, like COVID-19 has its symptom, you start to cough when you get breathless. Similarly, what are the symptoms of our material disease? The symptoms is these 4 problems and the 3 miseries. What are the symptoms that we are actually suffering? Birth, old age, disease, death, and adhyatmik, adhibhautik, adhidevik klesh. This is the proof that we are suffering in this world. There is birth, old age, disease, death. How many of us want to die, but then you can't avoid, you have to go through death? How many of us want sickness? Don't want, but you have to go through sickness. How many of us want to see all tragedy around, natural disturbances around? No one wants, but you can't avoid it. So we have to go through all this suffering. So this is the proof that we are actually sick. So the first step is to accept that one is sick. Arjun Priya 2, we'd like to continue the next 2.
Yes. So then after we accept that we are sick, or we understand that we are sick, then we have to approach the right hospital. So what is the right hospital? Like for our sick body, we go to a hospital, medical hospitals. But if our soul is sick, what is the sickness of the soul? Envy towards God, or being independent of God. So then we have to go to a special hospital, which is a temple. So in the temple, the service or the center of attraction is the deity. Center of attraction is God. And there, we go there and we bow down our head to God. If you see, whatever you do in the temple, bowing down, praying, offering some items, doing pradakshina, reciting certain prayers, all this, accepting the prasadam from the mercy of the Lord, accepting his dust, accepting the flowers. So all this giving and taking. Some simple things we do. Some things we give, some simple things, and some simple things we accept. But there, what is the most important thing is we accept him as a master. So that is the cure for this soul. That is how, by a regular visit to a temple, what happens is, it is like visiting to a very expert hospital, or visiting to a hospital where day by day our disease will be eradicated. So temple is like a hospital. So temple is not a place where it is just structure. It is not that temple means how big it is or how good looking it is. No. Temple is a place where God is worshipped and God is glorified. Nowadays, this is a virtual temple. We are attending class. Zoom also has become a temple now because we are glorifying God, right? Next. So we have to approach a right kind of a hospital. So here, a feature of hospital is what, when there are, in hospital, whom do we meet? There is a doctor, there are nurses, and there are other friends also, lot of them. So there is a hospital. Similarly, when we go to a hospital, it's a temple for us. So there we will meet all these patients, hospitals, and nurses, or doctors and nurses. Next slide. So temple is when we go to university, or why do we go to university? To get knowledge. Actually, temple is a place where we get knowledge of God, where we get knowledge of scriptures. So temple is not only for going and visiting or sitting for some time in silence, or just visiting, going there and ringing the bell. No. Actually, it is said temple is a place to meet a guru, or temple is a place to meet or to hear about God. So temple should be very active and it should be arranged in such a way that all discourses of God takes place, and then we can increase our knowledge of God. Next, right? Temple is like a battery charge. We know whenever we come in touch with knowledge of God, or when we get determined that okay, now I will follow the principles of God consciousness. So that time, after some time again, we will get discharged. All our conviction goes down. Why does it go down? Because when we go outside to our um, workplace or to our usuals, then they are not following the same principles. They may oppose you. They may challenge your beliefs, and all this. So what will happen is that time we become discharged, and when we become discharged, our faith. So regular visits are very important to temple. It's like a battery has to be recharged again and again. Then what happens? It becomes it keeps up, it functions very properly. Similarly, if we keep coming to a temple, then we will be able to face the outside world. We will be able to follow our convictions, or we will be able to follow the instructions of given in Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures. Next slide. So what we should do is, we should be regularly participating in the programs. Like here, what is missing from church is you are just a saying. Similarly, we should also, like previously people would visit temples very often. Similarly, we also should have a habit, and one day in a week at least, minimum, I will associate with devotees of Krishna. I will make sure that I attend certain classes of Krishna, or I will at least speak to devotees of Krishna. So what will happen is, this will keep our batteries charged. It will increase, not just charged, but it will also increase our conviction in the scriptures, because there is so much to know. This is just a basic course. This is just a beginner's course. And there is so much more knowledge to know. Each and every topic or each and every shloka of Gita can be spoken about for a long time, at least hour's lecture. So all this will come to know only by constant regular attendance in the programs. So we also may plan to regularly conduct some classes. So it will be informed to you all at the end of the class, or can be communicated through WhatsApp also. So we request all of you all to be in touch in whatever way we can right now in the Zoom classes. So what is today's scenario? The flag actually depicts who is in control or who is in charge. So in today's scenario, next slide. So today's scenario is, we see invariably each and every house has these antennas. So these antennas depict who is the king of the house, or who is ruling there. So what happens is, the center of whole attraction right now is, or there are a lot of engagement which people do. This may be very old photo where people are using Doordarshan and other channels, but now everyone has smartphone, unlimited internet connection, so many apps, all Netflix and other, we can see and watch whatever we want whenever we want. So today's scenario is very, very distracting, much more than what was maybe 20 years back, even much 50 years back. So in today's world, everyone is so much engrossed in so much of information, and most of it is all distractive information. Nothing to do with the soul. It's everything to do with the enjoyment of this material body. So it is a very tough time without having focus a person, like we spoke about all yoga systems, Dhyan Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is the most simple, but even that most simple thing will become difficult if you are distracted. Krishna says in the Gita, Vyavasaya Tatmaka Buddhi Ekeha Kurunandana. Krishna is saying, make your buddhi or make your intelligence one branch. Focus it on the purpose of life. So we also have to focus. Otherwise, so many distractions will simply take our time, energy, and it will only take us to towards the unwanted hellish things, destinations. Next slide. So this is the center of the house, usual scenario, where the entertainment is through the various channels and TVs. So the most prominent place in the house is given to the television. So there is a scenario in today's times. Next slide. So it's very important that we put Lord in the center of our life. We should somehow make arrangement in our life, in our family's life, such a way that that Lord is in the center. We will be telling how to do it. So if we see that in the very peaceful pond, if people throw stones in different places, what will happen? The pond will become completely disturbed. But if stone is thrown at one place repeatedly, then there are beautiful concentric circles. And these concentric circles don't clash with each other. Similarly, it is said that there's one more nice saying, the family which prays together stays together. So it's very important for a family life also to progress collectively towards God realization. So we should make sure that the center of the house becomes God. Krishna is the center of the house. Next slide. Like usually in those who are very much committed to worshipping Krishna, they make a home as the temple. So the most prominent place of the hall is given to the Lord, and there the schedule itself is to worship Krishna. Just like in temple, God is in the center. At home also we can make it a temple by putting him in the center. So we can pray, we can do aartis, we can offer the food to God, we can sing for the Lord, we can get his darshan. So in this way, there are so many beautiful engagements. There are so many beautiful engagements like reading and chanting and singing. So this can be done for the pleasure of Lord. Then the temple itself will be, your home itself will become the temple. Next slide. So after approaching the right hospital, you have to approach the right doctor. In the hospital there are doctors. So next slide. So what does it mean by right doctor? Like if you go to GMC hospital, there you may see so many people wearing white coats, or you may see some people going around. So it is not necessary that anyone who wears a white dress is a doctor. He may be a nurse, or he may be even someone else also. Sometimes even those who are students, those are just trying to become doctors, they may also wear a stethoscope. So then it doesn't become a doctor. So doctor means he should be qualified. He should be, we'll tell what are the qualifications to be a doctor. So we should approach a right doctor to get right results. Not that there's like in the in terms of spiritual knowledge, anyone who has a beard, or anyone who has a saffron clothes, or anyone who can speak some good things doesn't become a guru. Next slide. So one of the most important thing is a guru should come in proper parampara. Krishna also glorifies this, or he recommends this. He says, "Evam parampara praptam imam raj rishayo vidu." So evam parampara praptam. What is meaning of parampara? Parampara means unbroken chain of disciplic succession. Originally, the knowledge of Krishna was given by Krishna himself, because Krishna himself can speak about himself properly. So from him, then the knowledge went to, and then his disciple will have next disciple. So in this way, all the way from Krishna, knowledge comes to this current age, even right now. So it is basically said that there are 4 paramparas in the Vedic line, in the Bhakti line. That is, from Krishna gave knowledge to Brahma, and it is Brahma Sampradaya. Krishna giving knowledge to Lakshmi, this is Sri Sampradaya. Krishna giving knowledge to Lord Shiva, Rudra Sampradaya. Krishna giving knowledge to Sanat Kumar, or Kumaras, 4 Kumaras. It is Kumar Sampradaya. So whenever we approach a guru, you should come in one of these Sampradayas. Like, if you know, we may have a socket, electric socket. Sometimes we see that some sockets don't work. If you just plug something in, there's no connection. Why does it happen like that? Because whenever the connection to the powerhouse is not there, where the electricity is generated, then there is no current which comes. So similarly, the powerhouse is Krishna, and the connection is parampara system. So whenever we access Krishna's knowledge, we have to connect directly through parampara system. Next slide. Yeah, we can continue.
Yeah. So once we go to the right hospital, the temple which is a hospital, and then we go to the right doctor who's like a guru, the doctor will do 2 things. First, the doctor will tell us certain things to avoid, and then he will give us certain things to do, certain treatment to follow. So similarly in spiritual life, the guru tells us to avoid 4 things. What are the things? That which is not favorable to bhakti. So just like, you know, if someone wants to build his body, there is certain food that he has to avoid if he has to build his body. And there is certain food he has to eat if he has to build his body. Similarly, if you want to build a spiritual strength, there are certain things that we need to avoid, which is very harmful to our spiritual life. Like there are 4 principles of religion. The 4 principles to practice spiritual life. The first is purity. We need to cultivate purity. And what destroys purity? Especially illicit affairs, illicit connection with the opposite sex, and watching too much pornography and adultery destroys our purity. Already we are sufficiently impure. Already the mind and consciousness is contaminated sufficiently. So there is no need to add to more impurity to it. If you want to become happy, the only way is to become pure. There is no other way around it. So when we get into illicit affairs, we become very impure. So the first thing we need to avoid that the guru tells us is illicit connection with the opposite sex. Second principle of religion is compassion, daya. So what is daya? Daya means to feel mercy and to help the suffering of others. So one act that destroys compassion, destroys daya completely, is violence. So especially when we kill innocent animals and when we, eat meat, it destroys compassion. So this is the second principle we need to avoid. Second thing we need to avoid, that is eating meat. So if you stick to a vegetarian diet, it's very useful for spiritual life. The third is austerity. This is the third principle of religion, austerity. And what destroys austerity is intoxication. When we when someone smokes or drinks or is into drugs, because of this intoxication, we lose the sense of austerity. So to practice spiritual life, you need to be austere to some extent. And then truthfulness. Truthfulness means satya, satyam. So because God is the absolute truth, Krishna is the absolute truth. To know the absolute truth, we also have to be truthful. We can't keep speaking lies and living a life of lies around and expect to understand God. It is not possible. So we have to live a very truthful life. And one of the factors, one of the activities that destroy truthfulness is gambling. So we try to avoid gambling of every sort. So these are 4 things. If someone is serious in spiritual life, they will try to avoid: illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling. Now, we come to the most important part of the entire journey of self-discovery course and of this last session. The 5th point, applying the treatment. So this is like the essence of the entire journey of self-discovery course, the essence of the Gita. This is something that you all can apply in your day-to-day life. So what we are going to tell you, we are going to teach you 4 things. If these 4 things you apply in your day-to-day life, you will see how much progress you make. Just like we gave you that example, Bhakti Yoga is like that lift. You apply these 4 things that we're going to discuss now in your life, you will see that very soon you are elevated automatically. Just like you go in a lift and you press the button, you don't have to do anything. The lift effortlessly takes you on top. Similarly, if we do these 4 things that we are going to discuss now in your day-to-day life, effortlessly you will rise in the path of bhakti. So please pay attention to these 4 things. First, the most important thing. So out of these 4 things also, we are going to teach you 4 things: A, B, C, D. Out of these 4 things, A is the most important: association, Sangha. So what is association? That means what kind of company we keep. Like in English, they say, tell me who your friends are, I will tell you who you are. So tell me who your friends are, I will tell you who you are. So similarly, the kind of association we keep is very, very important. So that's why we are having this program. So 6 days, you all are getting a chance to associate with devotees, associate with the Gita, and sufficiently you all might have learned a lot. So it is important that we keep the association on. Once we disconnect from this association, then everything will get lost. You will lose everything. So association is very, very important. So one time there were 2 birds, twins. Both these birds, parrots, were twins. But one of them was taken by a butcher and one of them was taken by a sadhu. So both of them were brothers, came from the same parents, but one started to speak very harsh language, started to speak very nasty language, the one who was with the butcher, and the one who was with the sadhu started to speak very sweet language. Why? Because it was not the fault of the bird. It depended on whom they associate with. So we are all like these birds. Whom we associate with will depend what kind of character we will develop. If we associate with wrong people, we will become wrong. If we associate with the right people, we will become right. Like Narakasur. Who was Narakasur? Actually, Narakasur was a son of Krishna. But because he associated with demons, he also became a demon. Similarly, even though we may be a son of God, but then if we associate with wrong people, demonic tendencies will come into us. But who was Prahlad? Prahlad was the son of a demon, Hiranyakashipu. But because he associated with Narad Muni, he became a saint. So what is important is, if you want to become saintly in life, if you want to be godly in life, we need to associate with saintly and godly people. So that's why the scriptures say, sadhu sanga, sarva siddhi hoy, lavamatra sadhu sanga, sarva siddhi hoy. So it says that sadhu sanga is the most important. So all the scriptures mention this, sarva shastra kahe, that if you just associate with sadhus, life will become perfect. So like the Latin Americans, they gave this example that within our hearts are 2 dogs, a good dog and a bad dog. And both these dogs keep fighting. The good side and the bad side both keep fighting. So who will win depends on which dog is stronger. Similarly, if we feed the good dog within us, the good dog will win over the bad dog. Now, how do we feed the good dog? By staying in the right association. So our proposal to all of you all is that today we are ending the journey of self-discovery course, but we would request all of you all to be connected to us. So we just give you a glimpse of what is there in the Gita, but the Gita wisdom is unlimited. So we are planning to have regular classes, weekly classes, if all of you all are interested, to go more deeper into the wisdom of Gita. And believe me, there are many people who have done the journey of self-discovery course in the last so many years. And many of them have continued beyond the journey of self-discovery course into a weekly Gita class. And many of them have benefited a lot. Many of their lives have been transformed. So that is the power of association. If you just stick to the association, the weekly Gita classes that we are going to launch, then your life will 100% change. So our proposal is probably on a Thursday evening, say 1 hour, 7 to 8 or 7:15 to 8:15. We can plan an online Gita class as long as the lockdown continues. And beyond that, we can try to have physical classes also. So how many of you all would be interested to join in if we start the weekly classes? How many of you all would like to continue this journey ahead? So before we go ahead we complete the session. Yeah. So can anyone, all of you all text? Yes. Perfect. Jai. Yes. What about the others? Can it be 7:30? Yeah, we can make it 7:30. Yeah. Perfect. So, very happy that many of you all have answered yes. So that is the success of our journey of self-discovery course. So the journey of self-discovery course is just a trailer. We are just giving you a trailer. The actual movie is still to begin. The actual movie will start when we actually start the weekly Gita classes. So you all will find a lot of changes. The wisdom of the Gita is very powerful. If you just remain connected to this great book, a lot of transformation will happen. So thank you very much for your overwhelming response. So that is A, association, one of the most crucial things. B stands for books. Yes, even after the lockdown, the class can be online. Yes, we can always do it. So B stands for books. What books? Books means spiritual books. A stands for association, B stands for books. Books means the wisdom of Gita and Bhagavad. So if we regularly read these books, if you all don't have Bhagavad Gita, we can try to send you all Gita. So please keep these books with you. Whatever we have spoken in the journey of self-discovery course is all from the Bhagavad Gita. So it is something that's very, very important. So please read Gita every day. Even if it's 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 1 shloka, 2 shloka, be connected to Gita. This is a lifeline. Just like if someone is drowning in an ocean and someone throws a rope, how he will hold the rope. Similarly, the wisdom of Gita is like that. So let us try to remain connected to this wisdom. So if every day you all can read 1 shloka, 2 shloka, you all can actually systematically complete the Gita and you all will feel very, very nourished. So just like, one time someone asked Abraham Lincoln, the president of America, the former president of America, if you are given 1 hour to cut a tree, what will you do? He said, yeah, ebooks are also available of the Gita. So someone asked Abraham Lincoln, if you are given 1 hour to cut a tree, what you will do? He said, first 45 minutes, I will sharpen the axe. And then in 15 minutes, I will cut the tree. So reading Gita is like sharpening our axe, sharpening our intelligence. So by reading Gita, our intelligence becomes very sharp. And then, we'll be able to make decisions very fast. So what time is the Gita class? Yeah, we can work it out at 7, 7:15, 7:30. We can work the time around. That's fine. We'll work it out. Yeah. So the third most important thing, A is association, B is books, C is chanting. I've got a mala for all of you all to show you all. So this is a mala, this is chanting. So chanting is done in 2 ways. One is you do kirtan together or you do japa separately on your own. What do we chant? We chant the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this mala has 108 beads. So we, use these two fingers without the index finger, and we chant the entire Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Then we go to the next bead. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Like this. So for those, if you all want, we can try to send you all the beads also to you all, wherever you all are. So chanting is also something that's very important. So just like you have a mobile phone, you dial someone and you can call someone, even if someone is in America, you can make a WhatsApp call and talk to him. Similarly, through chanting, the Mahamantra, which is made of 16 letters, 16 syllables, 32 digits. So by chanting this Mahamantra, we can continuously be in connection with Krishna. Complete hotline with Krishna. And any time of the day and night, you can talk to Krishna. So just like, when you go through problems, many times we can't reveal our heart to others, we keep suffering. So chanting is a time where you can spend time with God. It is Krishna himself who has come in the form of these holy names. Nama namino abhinnatvam. So the name of Krishna and Krishna are non-different. So chanting is our healing time where we can actually pour out our heart to Krishna, pray to Krishna, ask Krishna help and surrender to Krishna. And definitely we'll experience a lot of reciprocation from Krishna in the form of his holy names, and our life will be completely nourished. Our heart will become completely filled with love and affection. So chanting is something that's very important. So we chant this Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And then finally, the fourth most important thing is diet. So what do we do in ISKCON? We have something called prasad. Whatever we cook, we offer it to God with love and devotion. We put tulsi leaves, offer it to Krishna, and then have that. So yes, someone asked this question, do we avoid onion garlic? Yes, we avoid onion garlic as far as possible. If you can, it's best, because onion garlic is considered to be food in the mode of ignorance and passion. So because we need sattva guna to practice bhakti, we avoid onion and garlic. So if you can cook food in a very pure way, vegetarian food without onion garlic, and if you can offer it to Krishna and have it, you can find that that food is not ordinary. Now it has become prasad. What does prasad mean? Prasad means mercy. So this is the mercy of God. It is no longer ordinary food. It is the mercy of God. And with that mood, when you take this food will not only nourish your body and mind, but it will also nourish our soul. So these are 4 most important things applying the treatment. This is like the essence of the Gita and the essence of the Journey of Self-Discovery course. A, association. B, books. C, chanting. D, diet. So someone is asking this question, how to offer prasadam to Krishna? I told you, we'll explain to you in detail when we do the weekly Gita classes. But in essence, you cook it without onion garlic in a nice way. And then you can make a separate plate for Krishna. Just like you have your own plate, you can make a separate plate for Krishna, put tulsi leaf in it, and then chant a few mantras, or at least chant the Mahamantra that we just chanted now, and pray to Krishna sincerely that Krishna, you please accept it. So the mood is important, bhakti. So Krishna tells in the Gita, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhaktya prayachati tadham bhakti uparatam ashnami prayatatmana. So if it is offered with bhakti, Krishna accepts it. So can persons who have not attended the Journey of Self-Discovery course also attend the weekly class? Yes, most welcome. So in essence, today we discussed what is karma, what is yoga, connection with God. We discussed how Bhakti Yoga is the most practical, easy to perform. It is the essence of the Gita. And we saw certain misconceptions that Bhagavad Gita can be done in family life. It is not for retirement, and it is not an emotion. It is something very practical. So we saw the final action steps, the 5. Accept that we are sick in this world, we are suffering. Approach the right hospital, meet the right guru, avoid certain things, and apply the treatment. Association, books, chanting, diet. So thank you very much, all of you all, for being part of this Journey of Self-Discovery course. We hope and pray that this course is just the beginning, even though the course is ending now, but we pray that the journey in spiritual life for all of you all begins now, and we can all be together in this journey as we go towards Krishna, back to the spiritual world. So once again, very grateful to all of you all that you all have taken your precious 6 evenings. It is not easy to patiently sit and hear. It's easy to speak, but it's not easy to sit and hear patiently for 2 hours every day. But all of you all have been patiently coming and hearing. So we are extremely grateful to all of you all. The online platform is a little difficult, to connect with, a lot of internet issues and everything. Still, you all have tolerated all our inconveniences. So from the bottom of our heart, we are very grateful. And we hope to see you all in our weekly satsangs. And we hope that we can continue this journey together. So the journey of self-discovery course actually has just begun. Right? So we hope that we can all be together in this journey. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.